Good afternoon and welcome back. We are a single income couple living in the Cotswolds, just trying to navigate our way through life on a budget. Okay, today I'm going to make stovies. Stovies is a Scottish cheap fallback meal. My mother used to make it at least once a fortnight. This has been actually requested, so hope you enjoy it, Faye. I'm doing it on the Aga60, but this does really well in the slow cooker, which is how I would have cooked it previously. So on the Aga60 I've got a cast iron pan heating up. I'm going to put the tiniest little bit of olive oil in the bottom, just like that, and then I'm going to add 8 sausages. Now these are cheap Asda, the new yellow label sausages. Those 8 pork sausages in the pan. The idea here is just to put a little bit of colour in them. My mother didn't do this. My mother just put it all in to boil together, but I like them with a little bit of colour on them, personally. So, pop those in there. And what I'm going to add to that is 2 onions, roughly chopped. Not finely chopped, I like them in quite big bits. That's 2 of that 3-pack of onions is going in with it. So I'm just going to let them cook for a bit. Let the sausages take on a little bit of colour and let the onions maybe cook slightly and go translucent. It'll also give nice flavour to the pan, which will deglaze when we add the stock. So I'm going to give them about, I don't know, 10 minutes just to get a little bit of colour on them and start cooking. I have actually got the plate on boiling. Once it gets going, I may turn that down to simmering. Once you've got the heat in the pan, then you can reduce the heat of the ring, and it all saves a little bit of electric, which is all good. So you could obviously make this with vegetarian sausages. You could make it with sliced sausage, which, being in the Cotswolds, it's not ready available to me. Not good stuff anyway. There's no Watson's the butchers here for sliced sausage to be had from. So I am just trying it with these Asda yellow label sausages and see how we go. Right, let's leave that for 10 minutes to just do its thing. Just going to pop the lid on to keep the heat in. I'll be back to you in about 10 minutes. So there we go, 10 minutes, and the sausages have started to get a little bit of colour. Getting some nice good stuff on the bottom of the pan as well. So I am going to add to this, I have got a whole swede turnip, whatever you like to call it, chopped into sort of, I don't know what, 1/2-inch chunks, and 500 grams of carrots chopped up. I'm going to add that in and give that a stir. And then I'm going to add the stock. So I have got here 600 mils of stock. I've got 2 stock cubes, about 600 mils of boiling water. So I'm just going to add that in. And that will deglaze the bottom of the pan and get all that good stuff off. And we'll bob the lid on and let that come up to the boil again. So far we've got the 8 sausages, 2 onions, a whole swede and 500 grams of carrots. and we're just going to let that come up to the boil. We let the sausages get a little bit of colour, and yeah, now we're going to let that boil. Just bring it up to the boil before we pop it in the simmering oven, or you would be putting the lid on your slow cooker and putting it. I would do it on low for 6 hours, but you could obviously do it on high for 3 hours. I suppose it just depends how you are time wise. It makes no difference to the taste whatsoever. So that's nicely coming up to the boil. So let's give that 10 minutes. So there we are, we're on a nice rolling boil now. That's all starting to cook lovely. What I'm going to do now is probably a little bit controversial, but I'm going to add about 50 grams of lentils to the mix. I've soaked and I've washed the lentils. Absolutely, completely not necessary these days, but that's what my mother did, so that's what I do. I think lentils are maybe an unusual ingredient to add to stovies, but I do add them to anything that is stew-like, because I think it adds protein and it bulks it out. Oftentimes your meat is the most expensive part of a meal, so adding the good protein of lentils just means that you can get away with maybe a little bit less meat. I think that needs more liquid, so I've got some more boiling water here. No stock cube, just boiling water. What have I got? About 400 mils. So I've actually added a whole litre of fluid to that. I'm going to let it come back up to the boil again, and then I'm going to pop it in the simmering oven, and I'm probably going to leave it now for, I don't know, maybe 3 hours, and then I'll add the potatoes. So we'll just let that cook away on its own. Oh, I'll tell you what I've forgotten, salt and pepper. So a bit of salt, pinch of salt, and a good pinch of pepper. For good measure. There we go. That just adds on to the taste. Actually, these sausages make a lovely gravy. Really tasty gravy. I can remember being little and my mum making stovies, and her putting me out a wee bowl or a wee cup of gravy and dipping bread in it. Oh, loved that. Oh, there's a childhood memory that's just come flooding back. So there we go. This point it would be in your slow cooker if you were doing it in the slow cooker, or just you would just turn your cooker down to simmering and let it simmer for a few hours. So that's going in the simmering oven, and we'll be back to have a look at it and to add the potatoes in a few hours. Okay, so we're back. Carrots and swede are cooked. Got a nice gravy with the lentils in there. But I am, this is probably sacrilege actually to the purists, but I am going to add just a little bit gravy granules, just to thicken the gravy up just a little bit. There we go. Just add a little bit, just to thicken it up. Lovely. I'm sure my mother put Bisto in hers, I'm almost positive she did. Okay, so I've got 1 kilogram of potatoes, white potatoes. I haven't peeled them, but I've washed them and I've chopped them into sort of bite-sized pieces, and those are going in. I didn't put these in at the beginning with the carrots and the swede with the sausages, because I don't like them, personally like them too fallen, too too disintegrated. I like them to kind of stay whole. So that is going to go into the simmering oven again for another hour, and then we'll see how the potatoes are doing. It's a classic one pot meal that in your slow cooker, I would give it all 2 hours before I put the potatoes in personally, but you could bung it all in at the start and walk away, come home to a delicious, hearty, warming meal for the family. So I'm going to bob the lid back on, pop it back in the simmering oven, give it an hour and then check back. And there we go, Stovies. A staple for any Scottish household. Warming, hearty, full of vegetables. And that's what we'll be having for our dinner today. Reminds me of my childhood. Good old Stovies. Thanks very much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.